Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Mass Effect 1 Legendary Edition. Now, this episode will contain nothing but me reading and reacting to the codex entries. So if you're not interested in that, you can just skip it altogether. Gameplay is going to resume in the next episode, because I want to do codex entries from time to time, because if I left them all for the end of the game, that would be an unholy mother load of codex that would take, like, I don't know, 5 hours or whatever. So I would prefer to do it from time to time in shorter bursts, but still, this is going to contain nothing but this, so if you're not interested, you can just skip the rest of this. I will start with the primary, which are being read to you, which is certainly useful for me, because, you know, your throat can get sore after so many codex entries, and obviously, again, English is not my first language, so I probably sometimes sound a little awkward. Let's get through it.
The Asari were the first species to discover the Citadel. When the Solarians arrived, it was the Asari who proposed the establishment of the Citadel Council to maintain peace throughout the galaxy. Since then, the Asari have served as the mediators and centrists of the Council. An all-female race, the Asari reproduce through a form of parthenogenesis. They can attune their nervous system to that of another individual of any gender and of any species to reproduce. This capability has led to the unseemly and inaccurate rumors about Asari promiscuity. Asari can live for over 1,000 years, passing through 3 stages of life. In the maiden stage, they wander restlessly, seeking new knowledge and experience. When the matron stage begins, they meld with interesting partners to produce their offspring. This ends when they reach the matriarch stage, where they assume the roles of leaders and counselors. The second species to join the Citadel, the Solarians, are warm-blooded amphibians with a hyperactive metabolism. Solarians think fast, talk fast, and move fast. To Solarians, other species seem sluggish and dull-witted. Unfortunately, their metabolic speed leaves them with a relatively short lifespan. Solarians over the age of 40 are a rarity. The Solarians were responsible for advancing the development of the primitive Krogan species to use as soldiers during the Rachni Wars. They were also behind the creation of the genophage bioweapon the Turians used to quell the Krogan rebellions several centuries later. Solarians are known for their observational capability and non-linear thinking. This manifests as an aptitude for research and espionage. They are constantly experimenting and inventing, and it is generally accepted that they always know more than they are letting on. Roughly 1,200 years ago, the Turians were invited to join the Citadel Council to fulfill the role of galactic peacekeepers. The Turians have the largest fleet in Citadel space, and they make up the single largest portion of the Council's military forces. As their territory and influence has spread, the Turians have come to rely on the Solarians for military intelligence and the Asari for diplomacy. Despite a somewhat colonial attitude towards the rest of the galaxy, the ruling hierarchy understands they would lose more than they would gain if the other 2 races were ever removed. Turians come from an autocratic society that values discipline and possesses a strong sense of personal and collective honor. There is lingering animosity between Turians and humans over the First Contact War of 2157, which is known as the Relay 314 incident to the Turians. Officially, however, the 2 species are allies, and they enjoy civil, if cool, diplomatic relations.
Yeah, so already with the council races, you can notice what I have talked about in one of the beginning episodes, which is this rather annoying anthropocentrism of the various races of the galaxy, because they are all pretty boring. They are like cookie cutter. You know, for example, the Turians, even down to the names, are actually heavily inspired by the Romans, because they have this system where, you know, to They put a lot of value on military service, and even their names are sort of inspired by some Roman names, which makes no sense whatsoever because obviously they are aliens from another freaking, part of the galaxy that had nothing to do with humanity and have existed probably, have existed as an advanced society, interstellar society long before the humans did. And the Asari, for example, you could also fit them into molds of like fantasy races. The Turians are kind of like dwarves. The Asari are kind of like elves. There is nothing particularly groundbreaking or weird about those aliens. In fact, I very much prefer some of the minor races in Mass Effect, and I would prefer them to have a greater role. For example, have a companion who's an Elcor or a Hanar. Instead, you all get those humanoid, boring aliens.
50,000 years ago, the Protheans were the only spacefaring species in the galaxy. They vanished in a swift galactic extinction. Only the legacy of their empire remains. They are believed to have built the mass relays and the Citadel, which have allowed numerous species to explore and expand throughout the galaxy. Prothean ruins are found on worlds across the galaxy. While surprisingly intact for their age, functioning examples of Prothean paleotechnology are rare. Time and generations of looters have picked their dead cities and derelict stations clean. Some believe the Protheans meddled in the evolution of younger races. The Hanar homeworld of Kadje, for example, shows clear evidence of former Prothean occupation. The presence of a former Prothean observation post on Mars has caused a rebirth of interventionary evolutionists among humans. These individuals believe the god myths of ancient civilizations are misremembered encounters with aliens.
Yeah, there are already people like that, even in our reality, but I have to pause for a second, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, so let's continue with the Rachni.
Though now extinct, the Rachni once threatened every species in Citadel space. Over 2,000 years ago, explorers foolishly opened a mass relay to a previously unknown system and encountered something never seen before or since, a species of spacefaring insects guided by a hive mind intelligence. Unfortunately, the Rachni were not peaceful, and the galaxy was plunged into a series of conflicts known as the Rachni Wars. Attempts to negotiate were futile, as it was impossible to make contact with the hive queens that guided the race from beneath the surface of their toxic home world. The emergence of the Krogan ended the Rachni Wars. Bred to survive the harshest environments, the Krogan were able to strike at the queens in their lairs and reclaim conquered Council worlds. But when Krogan fleets pressed them back to their homeworld, the Rachni refused to surrender, and the Krogan eradicated them from the galaxy.
Actually, now I wonder if the Rachni were maybe at least partially inspired by the bugs from Starship Troopers. Because
50,000 years, though no.
Because they are this hostile race of bugs guided by a hive mind. Although, that's not that original of an idea, I guess, or that unique of an idea.
The Elcor are a Citadel species native to the high-gravity world Dakuna. They are massive creatures, standing on 4 muscular legs for increased stability. Elcor moves slowly, an evolved response to an environment where a fall can be lethal. This has colored their psychology, making them deliberate and conservative. Elcor's speech is ponderous and monotone. Among themselves, scent, slight movements, and sub-vocalized infrasound convey shades of meaning that make a human smile seem as subtle as a fireworks display. Since their subtlety can lead to misunderstandings with other species, the Elcor often go out of their way to clarify when they are being sarcastic, amused, or angry. Dakuna's high gravity impedes mountain formation. Most of the world consists of flat, open plains, which prehistoric Elcor wandered across in small family bands. Modern Elcor still prefer open sky, and can become restless and uncomfortable on long starship journeys.
I have to note that clearly denoting sarcasm is a bit of a, it's a bit ironic in itself. Like, that kind of kills the point of sarcasm if you're clearly denoting that you're being sarcastic. But I love the Elcor. Like, I really am sad that they never played any kind of major role, and I'm doubly sad that you never got an Elcor teammate. Like, for example, imagine a romantic relationship with an Elcor. The hilarity of having this highly emotional dialogue sort of read to you in this monotone with verbatim descriptions of what that person is feeling, with visible arousal. You look beautiful today, Shepard. So yeah, I'm really sad that the Elcor never got, prominence.
The Geth are a humanoid race of networked AIs. They were created by the Quarians 300 years ago as tools of labor and war. When the Geth showed signs of self-evolution, the Quarians attempted to exterminate them. The Geth won the resulting war. This example has led to legal, systematic repression of artificial intelligences in galactic society. The Geth possess a unique distributed intelligence. An individual has rudimentary animal instincts, but as their numbers and proximity increase, the apparent intelligence of each individual improves. In groups, they can reason, analyze situations, and use tactics, as well as any organic race. Geth space is located at the trailing end of the Perseus Arm, beyond the lawless Terminus systems. The Perseus Veil, an obscuring dark nebula of opaque gas and dust, lies between their space and the Terminus systems.
Yeah, for that, the games will elaborate a lot more on the Geth, but for now, let me just say that I think it's a major douche move to design an AI, an actual AI, with the purpose of it being basically your slave. Like, when you design an artificial intelligence that even in a theory has potential to be in any way, sentient or approaching sentience, true AI, I think it's already a misstep and already morally wrong to do that with the chosen goal of having a race of cybernetic slaves. But on the other hand, why would you do it if not for that? We are making machines all the time just to make our jobs easier. If we ever wanted an AI, it would be for that, to do our work for us. I doubt it would be, just because we're bored or lonely or whatever. It would be to accomplish an actual, tangible, work-related purpose. But I will talk more about the Geth when the game brings it up.
The Hanar are a Citadel species known for excessive politeness. They speak with scrupulous precision and take offense at improper language. Hanar that expect to deal with other species take special courses to help them unlearn their tendency to take offense at improper speech. All Hanar have two names. The face name is known to the world. The soul name is kept for use among close friends and relations. Hanar never refer to themselves in the first person in conversation with someone they know on a face name basis. To do so is considered egotistical, so instead they refer to themselves as this one, or the impersonal it. Their homeworld, Kaje, has 90% ocean cover and orbits an energetic white star, resulting in a permanent blanket of cloud. Due to the presence of Prothean ruins on the world, many Hanar worship them, and Hanar myths often speak of an elder race that civilized them by teaching them language.
The Hanar are pretty cool as well. To be honest, most of the really minor races species are much more interesting than the main ones.
When the Asari discovered the Citadel, they also discovered the Keepers, a docile, multi-limbed insect race that seemingly exists only to maintain and repair the Great Prothean Station. Early attempts to communicate with or study the Keepers were failures, and it is now illegal to interfere with or impede Keeper activity. Because they are completely non-threatening, Keepers have become virtually invisible to everyone else. Similarly, they seem indifferent to other species, except for their tendency to help new arrivals integrate themselves into the Citadel. No matter how many Keepers die due to old age, violence, or accident, they maintain a constant number. No one has discovered the source of new Keepers, but some hypothesize they are genetic constructs, biological androids created somewhere deep in the inaccessible core of the Citadel itself. The Krogan evolved in a hostile and vicious environment. Until the invention of gunpowder weapons, eaten by predators was still the #1 cause of Krogan fatalities. Afterwards, it was death by gunshot. When the Solarians discovered them, the Krogan were a brutal, primitive species, struggling to survive a self-inflicted nuclear winter. The Solarians culturally uplifted them, teaching them to use and build modern technology, so they could serve as soldiers in the Rachni War. Liberated from the harsh conditions of their homeworld, the quick-breeding Krogan experienced an unprecedented population explosion. They began to colonize nearby worlds. Even though these worlds were already inhabited, the Krogan rebellions lasted nearly a century, only ending when the Turians unleashed the Genophage, a Solarian-developed bioweapon that crushed all Krogan resistance. The Genophage makes only 1 in 1,000 pregnancies viable, and today the Krogan are a slowly dying breed. Understandably, the Krogan harbor a grudge against all other species, especially the Turians.
Yeah, the Genophage is majorly fucked up, but it will also come up in the story itself, so I'll reserve my deep opinions on the subject until that moment. For now, let me just say that there seem to be some inconsistencies between how it is described in Mass Effect 1 versus how it is described in the future Mass Effects, the next ones. But I need to refamiliarize myself with that, because to be honest, it has been years.
Driven from their home system by the Geth nearly 3 centuries ago, most Quarians now live aboard the Migrant Fleet, a flotilla of 50,000 vessels ranging in size from passenger shuttles to mobile space stations. Home to 17 million Quarians, the flotilla understandably has scarce resources. Because of this, each Quarian must go on a rite of passage known as the Pilgrimage when they come of age. They leave the fleet and only return once they have found something of value they can bring back to their people. Other species tend to look down on the Quarians for creating the Geth and for the negative impact their fleet has when it enters a system. This has led to many myths and rumors about the Quarians, including the belief that underneath their clothes and breathing masks, they are actually cybernetic creatures, a combination of organic and synthetic parts.
Yeah, how the Quarians look has been one of the major mysteries in the beginning stages of the Mass Effect franchise, which, interestingly enough, nobody seems to care that much what Volus look like underneath their suits. But I guess that's mostly because you do have a Quarian teammate, that being Tali, but you do not have a Volus teammate, which is, again, kind of a pity. Like, to be honest, they could have ditched the humans, like, altogether, or just leave one of them, and just give you, some balls to the walls, crazy aliens in your team. That would obviously require a lot of effort from the developers, and I assume that's why they didn't do it. It would be difficult to design, different sets of animations for them, and whatever, different ways they can even wear clothes in some of those cases, because they have different skeletons than humans. For example, Elcor are quadrupedal, so that's a totally different set of movements. But I just think the overabundance of humanoid aliens is kind of bullshit.
The Volus are a member species of the Citadel with their own embassy, but they are also a client race of the Turians. Centuries ago, they were voluntarily absorbed into the hierarchy, effectively trading their mercantile prowess for Turian military protection. Erun, their homeworld, lies far beyond the normal life zone of its star. However, the world has a high-pressure greenhouse atmosphere that traps enough heat to support an ammonia-based biochemistry. As a result, the Volus must wear pressure suits and breathers when dealing with other species, as conventional nitrogen-oxygen air mixtures are poisonous to them, and in the low-pressure atmospheres tolerable to most species, their flesh will actually split open. Volus culture is tribal, bartering lands and even people to gain status. This culture of exchange inclines them to economic pursuits. It was the Volus who authored the Unified Banking Act, and they continue to monitor and balance the Citadel economy.
Yeah, the fact that the Volus have slavery as one of their cultural traditions, despite being, a spacefaring alien race, it gets a huge yikes from me.
After the Geths secure a location, they round up and impale dead and living bodies on mechanical spikes. The spikes rapidly transform these victims into withered husks, extracting water and trace minerals, and replacing them with cybernetics. The cybernetics reanimate the lifeless flesh and tissue, transforming the bodies into mindless killing machines. Some Alliance soldiers refer to the husk-generating spikes as dragon's teeth, a reference to the mythological berserkers who sprang up from the earth wherever the teeth of the dragon Eris were planted. Dragon's teeth and husks bear little resemblance to other pieces of Geth technology. No one is sure why a synthetic race would bother to drain the minuscule amount of recoverable resources from organic corpses, though the value of reusing them as shock troops is obvious. The Citadel is an ancient deep space station, presumably constructed by the Protheans. Since the Prothean extinction, numerous species have come to call the Citadel home. It serves as the political, cultural, and financial capital of the galactic community. To represent their interests, most species maintain embassies on the Presidium, the Citadel's inner ring. The Citadel Tower in the center of the Presidium holds the Citadel Council chambers. Council affairs often have far-reaching effects on the rest of the galactic community. 5 arms, known as the wards, extend from the Presidium. Their inner surfaces have been built into cities, populated by millions of inhabitants from across the galaxy. The Citadel is virtually indestructible. If attacked, the station can close its arms to form a solid, impregnable shell. For as long as the station has existed, an enigmatic race called the Keepers has maintained it. The Council is an executive committee composed of representatives from the Asari Republics, the Turian Hierarchy, and the Solarian Union. Though they have no official power over the independent governments of other species, the Council's decisions carry great weight throughout the galaxy. No single Council race is strong enough to defy the other two, and all have a vested interest in compromise and cooperation. Each of the Council species has general characteristics associated with the various aspects of governing the galaxy. The Asari are typically seen as diplomats and mediators. The Solarians gather intelligence and information. The Turians provide the bulk of the military and peacekeeping forces. Any species granted an embassy on the Citadel is considered an associate member, bound by the accords of the Citadel Conventions. Associate members may bring issues to the attention of the Council, though they have no input on the decision. The Human Systems Alliance became an associate member of the Citadel in 2165. Spectres are agents from the Office of Special Tactics and Reconnaissance, and answer only to the Citadel Council. They are elite military operatives, granted the authority to deal with threats to peace and stability in whatever way they deem necessary. They operate independently or in groups of 2 or 3. Some are empathetic peacekeepers, resolving disputes through diplomacy. Others are cold-blooded assassins, ruthlessly dispatching problem individuals. All get the job done one way or another, often operating outside the bounds of galactic law. The Spectres were founded after the Solarians joined the Council. For many years, they operated in secrecy as backroom problem solvers. Only after the Krogan rebellions did their activities become publicized. Assignment of a Spectre is less contentious than a military deployment, but makes it clear that the Council is concerned about a situation.
Yeah, to be honest, it seems to me that it makes no sense to make even the existence and much less the operating structure of the Spectres public, because as long as they were just, shadow agents, the fact that they operated outside the law was immaterial because nobody knew about it. So, as long as nobody knows about it, you can, as long as nobody knows about it and you discount morality, you can essentially do whatever you want. Whether you should, it's a different question, but you can. But once, it boggles my mind how stupid it is to literally openly declare that there is a group of government agents that can just do whatever, that are not bound by the, exact legalistic approach of having every one of their actions being based on some kind of a law or like a direct chain of command order. They can essentially do whatever and then offer justifications post hoc, which, it's just stupid to announce that, I feel like.
Humanity's first contact with an alien race occurred in 2157. At that time, the Alliance allowed survey fleets to activate any dormant mass relays discovered, a practice considered dangerous and irresponsible by Council-aligned races. When a Turian patrol discovered a human fleet attempting to activate a relay, they attacked. One human vessel survived, retreating to the colony of Shanxi. The Turians followed, quickly defeating the local forces. Shanxi was occupied, the first and to date only human world to be conquered by an alien species. The Turians believed the handful of ships they defeated represented the bulk of human defenses, so they were unprepared when the Second Fleet, under Admiral Castany Drescher, launched a strong counteroffensive, evicting them from Shanxi. The Turians mobilized for full-scale war, drawing the attention of the rest of the galaxy. The Council quickly intervened, forcing a truce. Fortunately for humanity, the First Contact War was ended with a diplomatic solution. The Systems Alliance is an independent supranational government representing the interests of humanity as a whole. The Alliance is responsible for the governance and defense of all extrasolar colonies and stations. The Alliance grew out of the various national space programs as a matter of practicality. Sol's planets had been explored and exploited through piecemeal national efforts. The expense of colonizing entire new solar systems could not be met by any one country. With humans knowing that alien contact was inevitable, there was enough political will to jointly fund an international effort. Still, the Alliance was often disregarded by those on Earth until the First Contact War. While the national governments dithered and bickered over who should lead the effort to liberate Shanxi, the Alliance fleet struck decisively. Post-war public approval gave the Alliance the credibility to establish its own parliament and become the galactic face of humanity.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pity to me that you never learn that much about the situation on Earth. And, how exactly does the Alliance work? Whether, for example, there are still any countries on Earth that haven't joined it, for whatever reason, that consider themselves to be, separate from the world government. That would be pretty stupid, I feel like, because it would essentially, as it says here, you would have to fund your own spaceships and whatever. It's super expensive, but I guess it could happen with some very unstable regions which don't have the capacity to explore space anyway. I just think it would be interesting if we learned more about, what Earth looks like, how life is on Earth. You do learn a little bit by you can fly to the solar system and actually see Earth and read a bit about it, which I will do. But I always wanted more of such information.
Pharos is a habitable world in the Attican Beta cluster. 2/3 of the habitable surface is covered with the ruins of a crumbling Prothean megatropolis. In the millennia since the Prothean extinction, the ruins have been repeatedly picked over by looters many times. Pharos was considered a poor prospect for colonization, as little open ground remains for agriculture. The only sizable freshwater sources are the poles, which are tapped by the decaying Prothean aqueduct systems. The dead cities, while in good condition considering their antiquity, are of uncertain stability. Ground level is congested by a dozen meters of fallen debris, and the air is fouled by dust. In 2178, the Human Exogeny Corporation announced its intention to place a permanent colony on Pharos to thoroughly explore the ruins. The pioneer settlement was placed on the upper levels of several intact skyscrapers, using the surviving Prothean aqueducts and rooftop hydroponic gardens to support the population. Noveria is a cool, rocky world with most of its hydrosphere locked up in massive glaciers. A privately chartered colony world, the planet is owned by the Noveria Development Corporation Holding Company. The NDC is funded by investment capital from 24 high-technology development firms and administrated by an executive board representing their interests. The investors built remote hot labs in isolated locations across Noveria's surface. These facilities are used for research too dangerous or controversial to be performed elsewhere, as Noveria is technically not part of Citadel space and therefore exempt from Council law. By special arrangement, Citadel's special tactics and reconnaissance agents have been granted extraterritorial privileges, but it remains to be seen how committed the executive board is to that principle. Given its unique situation, it is understandable that Noveria is often implicated in all manner of wild conspiracy theories. The terminus systems are located on the far side of the Attican Traverse, beyond the space administered by the Citadel Council or claimed by the Human Systems Alliance. It is populated by a loose affiliation of minor species, united only in their refusal to acknowledge the political authority of the Council or adhere to the Citadel conventions. Their independence comes at a price. The terminus is fraught with conflict. War among the various species is common, as governments and dictators constantly rise and fall. The region is a haven for illegal activities, particularly piracy and the slave trade. At least once a year, a fleet from the terminus invades the nearby Attican Traverse. These attacks are typically small raids against poorly defended colonies. The Council rarely retaliates, as sending patrols into the terminus systems could unify the disparate species against their common foe, triggering a long and costly war. Biotics is the ability of rare individuals to manipulate dark energy and create mass effect fields through the use of electrical impulses from the brain. Intense training and surgically implanted amplifiers are necessary for a biotic to produce mass effect fields powerful enough for practical use. The relative strength of biotic abilities varies greatly among species and with each individual. There are 3 branches of biotics. Telekinesis uses mass-lowering fields to levitate or impel objects. Mass-raising kinetic fields are used to block or pin objects. Spatial distortion uses rapidly shifting mass fields to shred objects. Most organic species are capable of developing biotic abilities, though there are risks involved. Biotics are the result of an in utero exposure to element 0. This usually causes fatal cancers in the victim, but in rare cases, it coalesces into nodules within the fetus's developing nervous system.
Yeah, there's actually a pretty fucked up backstory to how the first human biotics came to be, but that is going to be elaborated upon in the game itself, so I'll just wait until that moment to talk about it.
An artificial intelligence is a self-aware computing system capable of learning and independent decision-making. Creation of a conscious AI requires adaptive code, a slow, expensive education, and a specialized quantum computer called a blue box. An AI cannot be transmitted across a communication channel or computer network. Without its blue box, an AI is no more than data files. Loading these files into a new blue box will create a new personality, as variations in the quantum hardware and runtime results create unpredictable variations. The geths serve as a cautionary tale against the dangers of rogue AI, and in Citadel space, they are technically illegal. Advocacy groups argue, however, that an AI is a living, conscious entity, deserving the same rights as organics. They argue that continued use of the term artificial is institutionalized racism on the part of organic life. The term synthetic is considered the politically correct alternative.
Yeah, I do happen to agree, actually, that if you have true AI, it's essentially a person. It should be awarded every privilege that, living people get. Because at the point where you can't easily distinguish between them, save for the fact that one is organic and one is synthetic, that is an immaterial difference in my mind. It's all about the consciousness. If the consciousness is real or near enough to it that you can tell, you should treat it as a person. You shouldn't treat it as an object.
A virtual intelligence is an advanced form of user interface software. VIs use a variety of methods to simulate natural conversation, including an audio interface and an avatar personality to interact with. Although a VI can provide a convincing emulation of sentience, they are not self-aware, nor can they learn or take independent action. VIs are used as operating systems on commercial and home computers. Minimal VI agents are also available. Agents are compact and specialized. Some serve as personal secretaries, filtering calls and scheduling meetings based on user-defined priorities. Others are advanced search engines, propagating themselves across the extranet to collate user-requested data. Commercial VIs in a variety of stock personalities are available at any software retailer. Boutique firms and hobbyists also build unique VIs to personal specification. Although software emulation of living personalities is illegal, reconstructions of famous historical figures are common.
Yeah, the last part is actually pretty interesting. And by the way, I need to stop saying "yeah" at the beginning of every freaking paragraph. Every mention I make in this video. But it's pretty interesting that you can attempt to create a VI based on a living person, even if it is illegal. I guess you would do that by taking their online activity and trying to recreate their pattern of behavior based on that, which is something that is already kind of being done. There are bots that are trying to emulate a person based on an archive of their posts to write in a similar style or whatever.
Mass relays are feats of Prothean engineering advanced far beyond the technology of any living species. They are enormous structures scattered throughout the stars and can create corridors of virtually mass-free space, allowing instantaneous transit between locations separated by years or even centuries of travel using conventional FTL drives. Primary mass relays can propel ships thousands of light years, often from one spiral arm of the galaxy to another. However, they have fixed one-to-one connections. A primary relay connects to one other primary relay and nowhere else. Secondary relays can only propel ships across a few hundred light years. However, they are omnidirectional. A secondary relay can send a ship to any other relay within its limited range. There are many dormant primary relays whose corresponding twins have not yet been located. These are left inactive until their partner is charted, as established civilizations are unwilling to blindly open a passage that might connect them to a hostile species. Combat hard suits use a dual-layer system to protect the wearer. The inner layer consists of fabric armor with kinetic padding. Areas that don't need to be flexible, such as the chest or shins, are reinforced with sheets of lightweight, ablative ceramic. The outer layer consists of automatically generated kinetic barriers. Objects traveling above a certain speed will trigger the barrier's reflex system and be deflected, provided there is enough energy left in the shield's power cell. Armored hard suits are sealable to protect the wearer from extremes of temperature and atmosphere. Standard equipment includes an onboard mini-frame and a communications, navigation, and sensing suite. The mini-frame is designed to accept and display data from a weapon's smart targeting system to make it easier to locate and eliminate enemies. Kinetic barriers, more commonly called shields, provide protection against most mass accelerator weapons. Whether on a starship or a soldier's suit of armor, the basic principle remains the same. Kinetic barriers are repulsive mass effect fields, projected from tiny emitters. These shields safely deflect small objects traveling at rapid velocities. This affords protection from bullets and other dangerous projectiles, but still allows the user to sit down without knocking away their chair. The shielding afforded by kinetic barriers does not protect against extremes of temperature, toxins, or radiation.
The principle is actually a little similar to how the and by the way, I said yeah again, damn it. It is kind of similar to the principle of how shields work in Dune, although there they actually don't work against firearms at all, or you could say they work a little too well because they are constructed in a way where if they are hit by I think it's a laser, or by the most common types of firearms that they have in that setting, they actually explode in a literal thermonuclear explosion, which is why most people don't even use guns. They use melee weapons. But the principle is kind of similar, the scale is just different. To penetrate the shield, you actually have to purposefully slow your strike and then push it through and stab someone. You cannot just rapidly slash at them because the shield would stop that.
Medigel is a common medicinal salve used by paramedics, EMTs, and military personnel. It combines several useful applications: a local anesthetic, disinfectant, and clotting agent all in one. Once applied, the gel is designed to grip tight to flesh until subjected to a frequency of ultrasound. It is sealable against liquids, most notably blood, as well as contaminants and gases. The gel is a genetically engineered bioplasm created by the CITADEL Foundation, a medical technology megacorp based on Earth. Technically, Medigel violates Council laws against genetic engineering, but to date, it has proved far too useful to ban.
I actually forgot that humans developed Medigel. And it's also pretty interesting that it's still owned by a particular corporation, because it's so widespread that the level of potential abuse, it's the main medicament used by the military. You use it all the time in the game to heal yourself in the field. So the level of potential abuse that the CITADEL Foundation can get up to, if they really wanted to, is actually kind of astonishing.
All modern infantry weapons, from pistols to assault rifles, use micro-scaled mass accelerator technology. Projectiles consist of tiny metal slugs suspended within a mass-reducing field, accelerated by magnetic force to speeds that inflict kinetic damage. The ammo magazine is a simple block of metal. The gun's internal computer calculates the mass needed to reach the target based on distance, gravity, and atmospheric pressure, then shears off an appropriate-sized slug from the block. A single block can supply thousands of rounds, making ammo a non-issue during any engagement. Top-line weapons also feature smart targeting that allows them to correct for weather and environment. Firing on a target in a howling gale feels the same as it does on a calm day at the practice range. Smart targeting does not mean a bullet will automatically find the mark every time the trigger is pulled. It only makes it easier for the marksman to aim.
Okay, so that's the end of the entries that are being read to you. The rest you have to read yourself. Personal history summary. You were raised on Minduar, on the fringes of the Attican Traverse. When you were 16, the colony was raided by slavers, the entire settlement was razed and your friends and family were slaughtered. A passing Alliance patrol rescued you, but all you loved was destroyed. You enlisted with the Alliance military and was posted at Elysium. You were there during the Skillian Blitz, an attack on the colony by a massive coalition force of slavers, crime syndicates, and Batarian warlords. You rallied the civilian inhabitants, leading them in their desperate fight to hold off the invaders. When enemy troops broke through the colony's defenses, you single-handedly held them off and sealed the breach. After hours of brutal fighting, reinforcements finally arrived and the enemy broke ranks and fled. Because of your actions, Elysium was saved, and you are regarded throughout the Alliance as a true hero. Krogan Rebellions. After the Rachni War, the quick-breeding Krogan expanded at the expense of their neighbors. Warlords leveraged their veteran soldiers to seize living space, while council races were still grateful. Over centuries, the Krogan conquered world after world. There was always just one more needed. The council finally demanded withdrawal from the Asari colony of Lucia. The Krogan overlord Kerdak stormed off the citadel, daring the council to take their worlds back. But the council has taken precautions. The finest STG operators and Asari Huntresses have been drafted to a covert observation force, the Office of Special Tactics and Reconnaissance. The Spectres opened the war with a crippling strategic strikes. Krogan planets went dark as computer viruses flooded the extranet. Sabotaged antimatter refineries disappeared in blue-white annihilation. Headquarters stations shattered into the orbit-clogging debris rammed by pre-placed suicide freighters. Still, this only delayed the inevitable. The war would have been lost if not for the first contact with the Turians, who responded to the Krogan threat with a prompt declaration of war. Being on the far side of the Krogan space from the Council, the Turians advanced rapidly into the lightly defended Krogan rear areas. The Krogan responded by dropping space stations and asteroids on Turian colonies. 3 worlds were rendered completely uninhabitable. This was precisely the wrong approach to take with the Turians. Each is first and foremost a public servant, willing to risk his life to protect his comrades. Rather than increasing public war wariness, Krogan tactics stiffened the Turian resolve. The arrival of the Turian task forces saved many worlds from the warlords' marauding fleets, but it took the development of the genophage bioweapon to end the war. There were decades of unrest afterwards. Rogue warlords and holdout groups of insurgents refused to surrender or disappeared into the frontier systems to become pirates. Quarians Pilgrimage. When Quarians of the migrant fleet reach young adulthood, they must leave their birth ship and find a new crew to accept them as permanent residents. To prove themselves, they must recover something of value. This is offered to the prospective captain as proof that they will not be a mere burden on the shortening resources of the ship. This process is called the pilgrimage. Stripped of the ritual, the pilgrimage is merely an attempt to maintain a genetic diversity within the small, relatively isolated population that makes up the migrant fleet. If the young stayed and married within their birth vessel, the risk of inbreeding would increase sharply. Quarians are surgically fitted with their with their various immunity-boosting implants in preparation of leaving on the pilgrimage. Having grown up within the sterile, controlled environments of the migrant fleet, Quarians have virtually no natural immune system. Citadel conventions. The diplomatic talks occurred in the wake of the Krogan Rebellion as a response to the destruction of the conflict and an attempt to distance the Council from the brutal Krogan warfare. The convention regulates the use of weapons of mass destruction. A WMD causes environmental alteration to the world. A bomb that produces a large crater is not considered a WMD. A bomb that causes nuclear winter is. The use of WMDs is forbidden on garden worlds, like Earth, with ecospheres that can readily support population. If a habitable world is destroyed, it will not be replaced for millions of years. The conventions do not forbid the use of WMDs on hostile worlds or in sealed space station environments. Many militaries continue to develop and maintain stockpiles. The conventions graded the weapons of mass destruction into tiers of concern. Tier 1 is the greatest threat to galactic peace. Tier 1 – large kinetic impactors such as asteroid drops or deorbiting space stations. Effectively free and available in every system in the form of debris left over from planetary accretion, kinetic impactors are the weapon of choice for terrorists and Third Galaxy nations. Tier 2 – uncontrolled self-replicating weapons such as nanotechnology, viral or bacteriological organisms, von Neumann devices, and destructive computer viruses. These weapons can lie dormant for millennia, waiting for a careless visitor to carry them on to another world. Tier 3 – large energy burst weapons such as nuclear or antimatter warheads. Tier 4 – alien species deliberately introduced to crowd out the native forms necessary for the health of the ecosystem. Ecological tampering can take years to bear fruit, making it difficult to prove. Citadel Security is a volunteer police force answering to the Citadel Council. The 200,000 constables of CSEC are responsible for maintaining public order in the densely populated Citadel. They also provide pirate suppression, customs enforcement, and search and rescue throughout the Citadel cluster. CSEC has 6 divisions: enforcement, uniformed officers who patrol the Citadel and respond to emergencies; investigation, detectives who puzzle out the truth behind crimes and bring perpetrators to justice; customs, screens the thousands of passengers and cargo containers that pass through the Citadel's ports every day; network, deals with cybercrimes like identity and copyright theft, hacking and viral attacks, and illegal artificial intelligence; special response, deals with hostage situations, bombs, and heavily armed criminals. In the unlikely event the attackers board the Citadel, they are also the front line of defense, armed with military-grade equipment. Patrol, a naval arm with ships stationed throughout the Citadel cluster. Unlike the other divisions, they are rarely seen at the Citadel, nor do they stay in one place for long. Joining CSEC is prestigious. An application must be sponsored by Citadel Counselor or an ambassador of the Associate Council race. Generally, applicants have many years of distinguished service in the military or police forces of their nation, but an inexperienced applicant with demonstrable talent will be fairly considered. CSEC's inspectors are often at odds. Many CSEC members, notably the current executor Venari Palin, believe that allowing specters to be above the law is a dangerous practice. The actions of Saren Arterius led credence to that position. The specters, in turn, are aggravated when CSEC's dedication to procedure and due process hampers their investigations. Citadel Station Presidium Ring. The ring is an enclosed loop of park-like space serving as a connection to the point for the wards. The interior walls are lined with embassies of the influential species and private residences for the galaxy's elite. The Presidium is full of open-air restaurants, bars, and luxurious meeting areas. Gravity is about 1/3 of the Earth's normal. A holographic sky is projected over the ceiling of the ring. Unlike the 24/7 bustle of the wards, the Presidium maintains a 20-hour day schedule with 6-hour night, where lights are dimmed and the sky goes through a night cycle. Offices and residences are often open to the interior. It is not unusual for the embassies to have no exterior wall at all. This does not cause a crime problem due to the heavy CSEC presence and ubiquitous monitoring devices on the Presidium. Thieves are quickly identified and apprehended. The ring is the location of the Citadel's spaceports. Being closer to the center of the spin, there is less motion for the ship to match, and the reduced spin gravity makes handling cargo easier. Hundreds of ships pass through the Citadel every day, and every species with an embassy is granted a private dock. The tower at the center of the ring holds the administration of the Citadel Council. The tower rises over a kilometer from the ring, appearing to thrust forward, parallel to the ward arms. As the tower is the center of the spin axis, it experiences little centrifugal force. Gravity is maintained by using Mass Effect fields at a 90-degree angle to the rings and the wards. A consular dock can be found at the base of the tower. While normally used for diplomatic couriers and Spectre business, the shuttles docked here can evacuate the council government in an emergency. Citadel Station, Serpent Nebula. The Citadel is surrounded by a blue-tinted reflection nebula. The lights of the nebula is actually light from the Citadel, scattered and reflected back at the station. At first, the Serpent Nebula was assumed to be made of microscopic construction debris. Prevailing theory holds that the Protheans used molecular nanotechnology to manufacture the incredibly durable materials used in the Citadel, but unlike other nebulae, the Serpent does not dissipate over time. Therefore, it must be replenished constantly. The current popular theory is that the non-recyclable waste collected by the Citadel's keepers is somehow rendered down to the atomic or molecular level and ejected into the cloud. The thick nebula presents a navigation hazard. Beyond the relatively clear areas around the Citadel, electrical discharges are common. These are not blocked by kinetic barriers and can severely damage metal frame starships. In addition, some dense knots of dust can overwhelm the repulsion of kinetic barriers on smaller ships. If such a vessel is moving fast enough at a time, the effects are similar to being hit by a sandblaster. Attempting to reach the Citadel through open space navigation is unadvisable. The only safe approach is through the various mass relays that open it, or rather orbit it. Citadel Station Statistics. Although the Citadel is equipped with Mass Effect generating Element 0 cores, most of the gravity is generated by the centrifugal force of rotation. Rotation, 3.5 minutes per revolution. Rotational gravity in the wards, 1.02 Earth. Rotational gravity in the Presidium, 0.3 Earth. Now, this is actually pretty interesting because the difference is like, the gravity is 3 times as strong in the wards compared to the Presidium. So, to be honest, to go from one to the other, it would be very noticeable, wouldn't it? It must be pretty disorienting, especially for people who experience it for the first time too, because the ward's gravity is like almost exactly like the Earth's gravity, but the Presidium gravity is 3 times less. Total length open 44.7 kilometers, diameter open 9.8 kilometers, ward length 43.6 kilometers, ward width 330 meters, Presidium ring diameter 7.2 kilometers, Presidium ring width 553, exterior armor thickness 13 meters, population 13.2 million, not including the keepers, gross weight 7.11 billion metric tons, weight of the Presidium Tower 1046 or rather 47 meters, Citadel Station wards. The majority of the Citadel's population lives in the wards. the massive 5 arms of the station that house the residential and commercial districts. Many galactic races have established cultural enclaves here. Population density and cost of living is extremely high, akin to Earth cities such as Hong Kong and Singapore. The wards are open-topped, with skyscrapers rising from the superstructure. Towers are sealed against the vacuum, as the breathable atmosphere envelope is only maintained at the height of about 7 meters. The atmosphere is contained by the centrifugal force of rotation and a membrane of dense colorless sulfur hexafluoride gas held in place by a carefully engaged mass effect field. The view from the wards is spectacular. In the background, stars, Serpent Nebula, and a nearby blue giant called the Widow move across the sky as the station rotates to stabilize itself. In the foreground, the lights of the buildings and vehicles on the opposing wards' arms perpetually shine. The Citadel has no real night or day. While the station keeps to standard galactic time for political reasons, businesses rarely close, and the residents acclimate to sleep and work according to personal need rather than day-night cycle. Additions and modifications are constantly being constructed, though they must stay within a certain specification to not compromise the operation of the station. Occasionally, the keepers will descend on an area of the wards and move or change the architecture without explanation. Residents have learned to live with those inexplicable intrusions. Treaty of Farixen. Due to the destructive potential of dreadnoughts, the Council races agreed that the Farixen Naval Conference will fix the ratio of dreadnought construction between themselves. At the top of the pyramid is the peacekeeping Turian fleet. Below the Turians are the other Council races, currently the Asari and the Salarians. Council Associate races are at the bottom. The Human Systems Alliance is part of the last group. The ratio to Turian to Council to Associate dreadnoughts is 5 to 3 to 1. For every dreadnought the humans are permitted to build, the Asari have 3 and the Turian 5. Now, this is actually based on a real treaty that also regulated the number of dreadnoughts that could be built, but obviously it was it dreadnoughts? I'm not entirely sure, but it's specifically because I'm not really that well versed in like naval technology and the differences between the different types of actual naval, not spaceships, but it was, I think, the Washington Treaty in like the first half of the 20th century, which involved a lot of the major nations of the world, and it adjusted the number of different types of ships that they could have in relation to each other. So it's very clearly based on that. Okay, I have to pause for a second, be right back. Okay, I'm back, so let's continue. Systems Alliance, military jargon. Ashore. When a ship's crew leaves the vessel, they are ashore. Though normally used regarding planets, it can also refer to boarding a space station. Away. When a ship releases the equipment, tethering it to a space station or a service dock, it is away. Aye aye. The proper way to acknowledge an order. If told to attack, the correct response is aye aye sir. If asked, are you proud to be a Marine? The correct response is yes sir. Okay, so the aye aye is specifically for confirming an order. It's not just a general yes. ASAP. Pronounced ASAP. An acronym of as soon as possible. Belay, stop, cease. Bridge, the navigation center of a spacecraft, where the steering is done. Captain's mast, non-judicial disciplinary proceedings by the commanders. CIC, the combat information center, the command center of the spacecraft. The CIC is filled with sensor displays that make sense out of the chaos of combat. Damage control, DC. The containment and repair of a damage to spacecraft. ECM, electronic countermeasures used to avoid enemy sensors, from passive emission masking to active jamming, EVA, extravehicular activity, time spent in a pressure suit outside of the vehicle, spacecraft or station. Flank. The flank is the side of a military formation. Since the soldiers are facing elsewhere, an enemy that can attack the flank can often turn it or roll it up. FNG, freaking new guys, or rather fucking, I guess, but they couldn't have written it down. That's why the freaking is in quotations. A derisive term for inexperienced personnel. Ground side, at the surface of a planet. Helmsman, the crew member who pilots a spacecraft. Ladar? Light amplified direction and ranging. An active sensor that bounces lasers off of an object to determine its bearing and distance. Ladar has sufficient resolution that the data can be reconstructed into an image. Shore party. Spacecraft crew sent ashore on official business. Silent running, an old submariner's term used aboard the Normandy to denote when the stealth systems are active. SITREP, abbreviation of situation report, an evaluation of the current military situation. Spacer, someone who has spent most of their life in space. XO, executive officer, the second in command on the Alliance warship. The XO is responsible for the administrative and personal matters. Timeline. 2069, Armstrong outpost at Shackleton Crater becomes the first human settlement on Luna. It is formally founded on July 24th, the 100th anniversary of the first lunar landing. 2103, Lowell City in Eos Chasma becomes the first human settlement on Mars. 2137, Eldfell Ashland Energy Corporation demonstrates helium-3 fuel extraction from the atmosphere of Saturn. 2142, construction of the Gagarin station, Jump Zero, begins beyond the orbit of Pluto. 2148, prospectors discovered the Protean ruins at the Prometei Planum on Mars. 2149, translation of the Protean data leads humans to the Charon mass relay. Systems Alliance founded to coordinate exploration and colonization of extrasolar worlds. 2151, a shipping accident at Singapore International Spaceport exposes downwind communities to containers of dustform element 0. Alliance begins the construction of Arcturus Station. 2152, roughly 30% of the children born in Singapore after the element 0 exposure suffer from cancerous growths. Systems Alliance begins the settlement of Earth's first extrasolar colony world, the planet Demeter. 2154, Commander Shepard is born. 2155, System Alliance occupies completed portions of Arcturus Station as a headquarters. 2156, some children of Singapore exhibit minor telekinetic abilities. 2157, Turians encounter human explorers, First Contact War, occupation and liberation of the human colony of Shang-Chi. 2158, humans learn the potential of biotics. An international effort to track element 0 exposures begins. Roughly 10% of exposed children show some level of biotic ability. 2160, System Alliance Parliament is founded. 2165, humans establish an embassy on the Citadel. 2170, Batarian slavers attack the Alliance colony of Minduar. 2176, a Skillian Blitz. Pirates and slavers attacked Elysium, the human capital in the Skillian Verge. 2177, Thresher Moors devour the Alliance colony of Accuse. 2178, in retaliation for the Skillian Blitz, an Alliance fleet wipes out an army of slavers on the moon of Torfan. 2183, the current date. Starships, cruisers. Cruiserweight starships are the standard combat unit encountered away from the large naval bases, the poor bloody infantry of most fleets. Nimble scouting frigates have neither the punch nor the stamina to stand up to serious combat, and the mighty dreadnoughts are a strategic resource, carefully hoarded and committed in the most critical battles. Cruisers perform routine independent show-the-flag patrols in settled systems and lead flotillas of frigates in smaller engagements such as pirate suppression campaigns. In major engagements, cruiser squadrons support the dreadnought battle line by screening their flanks against the enemies attempting to maneuver for a main gun bow shot from their vulnerable broadsides. Alliance cruisers are named after cities on Earth. The dreadnought is the ultimate arbiter of space warfare. Millions of tons of metal, ceramics, and polymer dedicated to the projection of firepower against an enemy vessel of like ability. No sane commander would face a dreadnought with anything less than another dreadnought. A dreadnought's power lies in the length of its main gun. Dreadnoughts range from 800 meters to 1 kilometer long, with a main gun of commensurate length. An 800-meter mass accelerator is capable of accelerating a 2-kilogram slug to the velocity of 283 kilometers per second every 2 seconds. Each slug has the kinetic energy of 38 kilotons of TNT, 3 times the energy of the released by the fission weapon that destroyed Hiroshima. When used to bombard planets, some of this kinetic energy is lost due to the atmospheric re-entry friction. As a rule of thumb, each Earth atmosphere of air pressure saps approximately 20% of a projectile's impact energy. The Turian fleet currently has 37 dreadnoughts, the Asari 21 and the Salarian 16. Humanity has 6, with an additional hull under construction at Arcturus Station. Alliance battleships are named after mountains on Earth. Everest class, Everest, Fuji, Elbrus. Kilimanjaro class, Kilimanjaro, Taishan, Shasta, Aconcagua. Under construction. Starships fighters. Fighters are single-pilot small craft. They are lightweight enough that they can be economically fitted with the powerful Element Zero cores, making them capable of greater acceleration and sharper maneuvers than starships. Kinetic barrier shields change starship battles from short, vicious bloodbaths to extended, indecisive slugging match. Only the main gun of a dreadnought could punch through a mass accelerated slug through the barriers of an opposing dreadnought. This changed with the development of the fighter-launched mass disruptor torpedo, a short-ranged weapon that can penetrate kinetic barriers to destroy the projector assemblies. Starship Guardian defenses must be overwhelmed through swarm tactics. Fighter groups can take heavy casualties, pressing their torpedo attacks home. Once fighter-launched torpedoes have crippled the enemy barriers, the mass accelerators on frigates and cruisers can make short work of them. Interceptors are a type of fighter optimized to attack other fighters with no ability to damage starships. Interceptors are used to screen friendly units from incoming fighter attacks. Starships frigates. Frigates are light escort and scouting vessels. They often have extensive guardian systems to provide anti-fighter screening for capital ships and carry a squad of marines for security and groundside duty. Unlike larger vessels, frigates are able to land on planets. Frigate drive systems allowed them to achieve high FTL cruise speeds. They also have proportionally larger thrusters and lightweight design mass, allowing them to maneuver more handily. In combat, speed and maneuverability make a frigate immune to long-range fire of larger vessels. In the time it takes the projectile to reach them, frigates are no longer where they were predicted to be. In fleet combat, frigates are organized into wolfpacks flotillas of 4 to 6. Wolfpacks speed through the enemy formations, hunting enemy vessels whose kinetic barriers have been taken down by fighter-launched disruptor torpedoes. The Wolfpack circle strafes vulnerable targets, using their superior speed and maneuverability to evade return fire. Alliance frigates are named for great battles in human history. Light lag. Starship sensors. Light lag prevents sensing in real time at great distances. A ship firing its thrusters at the Charon relay can easily be detected from Earth, 5.75 light hours, 6 billion kilometers away, but Earth will only see the event 5 hours and 45 minutes after it occurs. Due to the light speed limit, defenders can't see enemies coming until they have already arrived. Because there is FTL travel and communications, but no FTL sensors, frigates are crucial for scouting and picket duties. Passive sensors are used for long-range detection, while activity sensors obtain short-range, high-quality targeting data. Passive sensors include visual, thermographic, and radio detectors that watch and listen for objects in space. A powered ship emits a great deal of energy, the heat of the light support systems, the radiation given off by power plants and electrical equipment, the exhaust of the thrusters. Starships stand out plainly against the near absolute zero background of space. Passive sensors can be used during FTL travel, but incoming data is significantly distorted by the effects of mass effect envelope and Doppler shift. Active sensors are radars and high-resolution LiDARs, laser detection and ranging, that emit a ping of energy and listen for return signals. LiDARs have a narrower field than a radar, but LiDAR resolution allows for images of detected objects to be assembled. Active sensors are useless when a ship is moving at FTL speeds. Now, this is actually pretty interesting. The sort of all of the pre-planning that comes with like the huge distances in space. I dig that. You know, the change in perspective, because you know, space combat, it isn't just like air combat, but in space. It's a totally different situation compared to, you know, your standard in atmospheric like dogfights or whatever against planes. Technology, biotics, biotic amps. Biotics manipulate Mass Effect fields using dozens of Element Zero nodules within their nervous systems that react to electrical stimuli from the brain. Amplifiers allow biotics to synchronize the nodules so that they can form large fields strong enough for practical use. Amplifiers can improve a specific discipline or talent. An implant is surgically embedded interface port into which amps are plugged in. On humans, the implant is usually placed at the base of the skull for convenient access. The user must be careful to keep it free of contaminants. Implant ports can fit a variety of amps, and there is a growing market for modification and add-ons. The finest quality implants and amps are manufactured by Asari artisans, but the Alliance L3 implants, first deployed in 2170, are a significant step forward. Communications. Real-time communication is possible thanks to the network of expensive mass relay combuoys that can daisy-chain a transmission via lasers. Combuoys are maintained in a pattern built outward from each mass relay. The buoys are little more than a cluster of primitive miniature mass relays. Each individual buoy is connected to a partner on another buoy in the network, forming a corridor of low-mass space. Tight beam communication lasers are piped through these tubes of FTL space, allowing virtually instantaneous communication anywhere on the network. The networks connect across regions by communications lasers through the mass relays. With this system, the only communication delay is the light lag between the source destination and the closest buoy. So long as all parties remain within half a light second, 150,000 kilometers of buoys, seamless real-time communication are possible. Since buoys are maintained in all traveled areas, most enjoy unlimited instant communication. Ships only suffer communication lag when operating off established deep space routes around uninhabited outer system gas giants and other unsettled areas. During wartime, combuoys network are the first target of attack. Once the network is severed, it can take anywhere from weeks to years to get a message out from a contested system. In systems where a buoy network has not yet been built or has been destroyed, rapid communication means ferrying information through the high-speed courier ships and unmanned data drones. Communication administration. While convoys allow for rapid transmission, there is a finite amount of bandwidth available. Given that trillions of people might be trying to pass a message through a given buoy at a time, access to the network is parceled on priority tiers. The Citadel Council inspectors have absolute priority. If they are using all of the bandwidth, everyone else must wait. Individual governments and their militaries enjoy the next highest tier. During wartime, civilian communication can suffer hours or even days of lag. Intelligence agencies study ping time through various systems to predict military buildups. Below the governments and militaries, bandwidth priority is sold to the highest bidder. Media conglomerates, particularly headline news networks, purchase higher priority to provide their viewers with timely information. Corporations that require timely information and response capability, for example financial institutions and investment firms, also invest heavily in priority access. The funds acquired through the sales of bandwidth are used to maintain and expand the communication infrastructure. While everyone with a computer has a guaranteed free and unlimited access to the Galactic extranet, they are the last in line for bandwidth and may have to wait for their requests to be processed. Bandwidth resale corporations use investment capital to purchase blocks of high priority access made available by paid subscription. So basically, the internet is free, but it might suck, and there is nothing you can do about it because the intergalactic militaries might just be using all of the bandwidth at a given time. Although I would imagine, the internet, limited to Earth itself, probably still exists, and that is separate from that, right? That doesn't require those convoys because it's limited to Earth. Credits. The standard credit was established by the Citadel's Unified Banking Act as the currency of interstellar trade. The credit has a managed floating exchange rate, calculated in real time by the central bank to maintain the average value of all participating currencies. Some regional currencies are worth more than a credit and some less. Hard currency can be stolen or counterfeited, so electronic fund transfers are the norm. Most importantly, physical transactions cannot be easily tracked, making them ideal for tax evasion or purchase of illegal goods. When the Alliance joined the Citadel, its various national treasuries were linked to the credit network. A human with a bank account of Mexican pesos, Japanese yen or Indian rupees can purchase any item priced in credits at a fair market value. All economies that participate in the credit network are required to price items in both local currency and credits. And upgrades. The development of practical manufacturing omni-tools allows modern militaries a great deal of flexibility in equipment loadouts. A vast number of field modification kits or upgrades are available for common equipment such as weapons, armor, omni-tools, biotic amps, and even grenades. An upgrade kit typically consists of less than a dozen unique parts and an optical storage disk. When loaded into an Omni-tool, the OSD provides all the technical specifications required to manufacture the tools and additional parts required to install the upgrade onto another piece of equipment. Assembly is typically modular, and installation can be completed in less than a minute. Since Omni-tools are designed to use common battlefield salvage materials such as plastic, ceramics, and light materials rendered into semi-molten Omni-gel for quick use, it is quite possible for a trained soldier carrying upgrade kits to customize gear on the battlefield to fit the current tactical situation. Okay, so that was the first batch of the Codex. It did take a while, but as I said, if I left it to fester until the end of the game, it would be an ungodly amount of text. So that's all for this one. Next time I'm going to resume normal gameplay, but for now, That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!